Hey, firefighters out there, thank you. Seriously, I wanted to say that to start off this video. I got this shirt in the mail from a subscriber, and that's a tough job. It has been smoky here for weeks and weeks and weeks. I appreciate you guys. That's a tough job. Thank you. Okay, what are we doing here today, everybody? All my YouTubery friends out there. We got our top end kit really fast from Wolf Creek. So what I'm going to do today, let's bolt this top end kit on our 268 giveaway saw and let's time it together. And then let's talk about what they are stock and where I want to go. We got to measure the squish and the exhaust, the blowdown, and the intake timing. So let's do that together. I'm going to get you guys all set up here. This is the first time I've timed anything on this bench. So this is my dad's chainsaw box. This thing's like 40 years old. This brings back a lot of memories. Okay, I'm going to get this wheel zeroed and let's time a saw. Okay friends, so I loosely mounted the timing wheel on. Here's a better shot of the drill chuck. That's how I do it. There are other ways. You can have threaded pieces that screw onto there with a bolt hole. I use a drill chuck because I do so many different saws here. This will work on any saw. So I get a lot of questions about that. I like the drill chuck method. Again, to each their own. This is what makes the world go round. Okay, wrist pin bearing's been installed. Let's take our brand new piston and cylinder. Now I'm going to install this with no rings on it. Just cut this off here. Okay, your arrow goes to the exhaust. Welcome to the newcomers. This is what we do here. We make saws go fast. Okay, and slide it over there. There you go. Wiggle it around. There you go. Take our top end. Make sure there's no debris in there. Okay. Oh, one thing here, friends. You want to cut off, there'll be a little tail from the gasket. You want to cut that off before you put the top end on. Okay. Make sure it's flush. I snipped this off with my knife, both sides. Okay. It'll look like this. So if you've never done this before, just cut those off. Try not to let it fall on the bottom end. If it does, just dump it out. You'll get it out. It happens. Okay. I'm gonna put our bottom end on. There you go. Right there. Put our bolts on. Just give me a second here, folks. I'm gonna grab my Hemostats because I got sausage fingers. They don't work well for this kind of business. Okay, Hemostats. I use these things for everything. A lot of times your hands just don't fit in there. This one you can drop from the top. And it'll just fall in the hole, same with this one. Okay, we're going to torque this down. This is the best part because you get to see where you're starting and then you can hypothesize where you want to go. We're gonna do that today. Okay, I want to do a serious talk about timing. You guys are learning, and I like that. If I can be the guy that helps you guys learn, that's what keeps me doing this, folks. This channel was started to share knowledge and help you guys work on your power saws, and we're not going to change course. Okay, reef this down. Okay, there we go. Make sure nothing's touching, everything's good. Piece of copper wire on a bolt, reef down. That's it. Again, guys, keep it simple. You really don't need fancy tools to port saws. At least I don't believe you do. Okay, we got our piston stop. Put it in the cylinder at a space that you can hold it. Okay, I like to insert it so it just touches the top of the combustion chamber. Now both sides should match. You got 66. There's a little bit of a difference in perspective to what I'm seeing and you guys are seeing. 66. 66. Okay. You guys see that? 66. 66. Okay. I'm going to cinch down our timing wheel tight. Now, it's probably moved a little bit. Here's what I do. See? So we moved it. We're at 69. Okay. We know we need 66. I'm just going to bend the pointer, okay, to be exactly where we want it. Once you get it close, you can do that. Okay. 66. 66. Okay, it's just that simple, friends. Okay, so we got our timing wheel zeroed. That is the #1 thing to porting a saw, in my opinion. You get that timing wheel zeroed and you've got to be able to recreate your results. That's the #1 question I get in emails, is you guys send me numbers and I can tell if the numbers are within where they should be. Once in a while you get a cylinder that's wonky, but if your exhaust is timing over, I don't know, if your exhaust is timing over 100, like 98, 96, 95 on a stock cylinder on any saw, you know that your timing wheel usually is not lined up. So that's a good way to know. Okay, let's do our exhaust first. I always start with my exhaust and I work my way down. Okay, I've put a light inside the cylinder. See that? That's called your first ray of light. Notice how symmetrical a stock highway cylinder is. Okay, that is a good looking exhaust port. Notice that it's curved. You don't want your exhaust port flat. Okay, open, close. So what we're timing after top dead center, okay, after top dead center, where does it open? The rotation is in this direction, okay? This way. Think of the rotation of the chain. Okay, so I will spin it forward. Let's see where our exhaust opens. Okay, here's top dead center. You can see. It's going to open somewhere around 100, usually past. Okay? First ray of light. Right about there, and you can confirm by looking at the top of the piston. Okay, so I'll show you guys. You see, first ray of light. Some exhaust ports you're gonna have to look at where the piston clears. Okay, there's our first ray of light. I'm gonna back it up a little bit. Okay, just when it starts to shine. Now notice this is a nice symmetrical exhaust port right here. It is opening more on the clutch side than the flywheel side. Something to be aware of, and we will fix that. Okay, and where does it open? It's telling me it's opening at 104, 104.5 after top dead center, right? 104.5. That's why I like this timing wheel. Now, we'll do this 3 times. We'll do this 3 times, folks, okay? Piston opens, piston closes, top dead center, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 104.5. Okay, right here. Just when it opens. I think we're going to call this one 105. Okay. It's right in between 100. That's 105 right there. And that's 104. Okay, this is the stuff that you really got to pay attention to. If you can't recreate your numbers, you know your timing wheel's off. We're going to call this 104.5. And as you guys can see, We're at 105 right now, and there's slightly more showing, okay? If you move it back, just where it opens. So we're closer to 104 than 105. So I'm probably going to call this 104. One more time. Piston opens, piston closes, top dead center. And as you can see, that first little ray of light is right there. Okay, so we're going to write this down. 104 after top dead center is our exhaust. Okay, friends, now if you do not have a scope, see that transfer right there? You're going to have to eyeball where it opens. Okay, you want them to open the same on both sides. Okay, this is what you got to do. Now, I'll show you how to confirm that. You use a ring. Okay, you can also look through the spark plug hole. So, we're just going to eyeball that right there and see where does it open on the timing wheel. 125 is what it's saying. Okay, 125 after top dead center is where our transfers open. Let's have a look with the scope and see if what we see with our eye is actually what's going on. Here's a look from inside the cylinder with the bore scope. It's really nice. We can actually see exactly where the transfers open. Right about there. Okay, as you can see, there's a massive discrepancy between my eye. They're opening at about 120, okay? Now, we will put a ring in this and recreate that, and I'll show you guys in a minute. Okay, so 120. So, as delivered, this thing has 16 degrees of blowdown. Not exactly what I'm after. Okay, now let's do the intake. Okay, and we'll time our intake right there. Okay, it'll open from the bottom. What do we got here? Right there. Right when it starts to open is where I time it. Some people time it at 30 thousandths or 20 thousandths. I think that is correct. Typically, flow doesn't start till about 20 thousandths. I like to time them right as they open. That way, you never over intake your saw. Okay, so this opens. I'm having trouble getting it to stay right there, and that is 74 before top dead center. Okay, 74. That is typical of where these things time. And if it opens at 74, it should close at 74. Did it close there, folks? Right there. I'm just looking at the wheel. Okay. Right there, we should have the same thing in the view. If we do, we know we're zeroed. Okay, right about where it cracks there, just like we timed it. 74, just like that. Okay, so we know our intake opens at 74, and it closes at 74. 74 times 2 is, think about it, because it's so simple. I time this way, I time before top dead center, because you times that number by 2 and you have your duration. Does that make sense, guys? So 74 times 2 is 148 duration on your intake. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I want to know where the transfers open, like for sure. I'm going to spin the motor back to bottom dead center, 180, right? Okay, I'm going to slide this off. Now, what I'm going to do, see the motor's at bottom dead center. I'm going to take a ring and I'm going to insert it in the cylinder, right at the bottom, okay? This is how I've always done this. That way you can never misjudge where your transfers open. Okay, I'm just going to cinch this down with a couple bolts here. Okay, so our piston's at bottom dead center. Okay, now what we'll do, I'll spin you guys around here. Okay, now what we'll do is we want the piston to go up. Okay, I'll spin it back around. I think it's opening at 120, okay? Right there, now we'll put it back to where we had it before. Okay, which is bottom dead center. Take the cylinder off, turn it upside down. Okay, here's inside the cylinder. Notice the ring is even with the top of the chamfer. Okay, so we know that's exactly where it opens. It opens at 120. That's it. That's a timed cylinder. Let's look at the numbers together and talk about them. Before we get too far ahead, let's check our squish. I just screwed the clutch on lightly. Piece of solder. I'm going to push it as far as I can till it hits the cylinder wall. I'm going to go over it a couple times. Okay. You want to measure in all the corners. Now, squish on this cylinder is only 10.5 thousandths. That's extremely, extremely tight. Now, I'm going to put this back this way. Let's check the back side of the cylinder. I can tell just by looking at it. 10.5 thousandths. You guys see that? 10.5, 11 thousandths. So we know this thing is nice and straight. So this brings up a question. What do? We want to run no base gasket, don't we? But our squish is too tight. Let's talk about that. Here's what I did. I put the base gasket that was supplied with the kit under the cylinder. Let's see if we can figure a way around this. Because not everybody has a lathe. I do. It's just, but I mean, if you don't have a lathe, what do? I'll tell you guys. It's not the worst thing. Okay. Let's check it. What's our squish at now with a base gasket? $28 thousandths. Oh. Look at that, friends. I can live with that. Can you guys? So there you go. Here is an example of a time when a base gasket delete is just not appropriate. Okay, so we're going to run this with a base gasket, but now we got to retime it. I'm going to redo all the timing numbers, and I'll hit you guys back up because now we've moved the cylinder higher. Let's see the difference in timing numbers with and without a base gasket. I'll hit you guys back up. Okay, friends, I retimed the cylinder. I want to show you this because it's quite interesting. I think you guys may get something out of this. You're going to notice something from the old numbers to the new numbers. I'm going to bring you guys in here and show you guys my timing sheet, and then we'll talk about where we're going with this build. Okay, friends, here's our timing numbers. I wrote down the saw, 268 giveaway saw, and then just timing numbers, okay? Now, usually what I'll add, hyway 50mm pop-up. Then I know the cylinder, and if I like the numbers, I can always go back. Okay, so without a base gasket, our squish was 10.5 thousandths. That is too tight. Don't go below 20. 25 is probably better when you're just starting out. Things do expand as you heat up the saw, and you can tap that piston on the top of the combustion chamber. So we didn't like that. Okay, I timed it anyways. Why not? Exhaust 104 after top dead center is where it opens. 104 times 2 is 208. 208 you subtract that from 360, right? The total degrees. So 360 minus 208 is 152. That's the duration. This is how many degrees it is open for. Our transfer is opened at 120 after top dead center. Okay, that is a blow down. I'll just put blow down. Okay, 120 minus 104, that is 16 degrees of blow down. I'm writing upside down, so hopefully that's right. Okay, 16 degrees of blow down. That's pretty short. I would like substantially more than that. Intake, 74 before top dead center. I time it before top dead center because 74 times 2, 148, that's your duration. Right? It opens on the way up, which is before top dead center, and it closes on the way down, so you can just get your duration right there. Okay, this is with a base gasket. I retimed it. Our Squish, 22.5 thousandths is what I'm getting. That is like beautiful. Good job, Hyway. It's like Hyway made this cylinder to put a base gasket under it, and their base gasket is exactly the thickness. So we're very happy with that. We're going to run this with a base gasket. Exhaust, we move the cylinder up, right? We move the cylinder up 10 thousandths. Well, it looks like 10 thousandths is a degree because we gained a degree of exhaust timing. So our exhaust is now at 103 after top dead center. So it opens a degree sooner, right? So now our duration, if it opens 1 degree sooner, we've added 2 degrees from this to our duration. Does that make sense? If it opens 1 degree sooner, it closes 1 degree later. So we're at 154 duration. Our transfer is now open 1 degree sooner, 119. Interesting, isn't it? Now, friends, I do not do transfer duration. I guess you could. Some people do. I have no interest in how long they're open. I'm only interested in when they open. Case pressure generally doesn't build much pressure at all. Your flow starts at opening and probably peters off pretty quick. I'm more concerned with the separation between this and this. Okay. Our intake, funny, our intake is now 1 degree, opens 1 degree later than before. So it now opens 73 degrees before top dead center. Okay. So our duration is shorter now, 146 versus 148. There you go. So often people say, well, the piston moves differently at different heights in the stroke, and that's true. But in this case, we got 1 degree sooner on the exhaust, our transfers open 1 degree sooner, and our intake opens 1 degree later. It is linear on this saw. Okay, friends, this is what we're doing. Our stock right now is 103. We're going to put it at 98. That'll give us 162 degrees duration versus 152. Right, that's 5 degrees. Okay, so we've added 10 degrees of duration. Now, if we add 5 degrees, if our exhaust opens 5 degrees sooner, that means there's 5 degrees more blowdown. So now we're at 21. I'm happier at 21 than I am at 16. I like to let that exhaust get out for longer before I start filling the combustion chamber. That's just my theory. Other people do it that way. Some people really like to crowd these. I have done that in the past. It didn't work for me. So, okay, our intake is 73. I think I'm going to put it at 76. That'll give us 152 intake duration. 77 is 154. 78 is 156. Okay, 1 degree of intake timing is 2 degrees of duration. Approach this carefully. Don't go much past this on any saw. 156, 158. Don't start going into the 160s. It will spit back through the carb and you'll have a saw that doesn't idle. Okay, friends. Now, if a fella had a lathe, here's the piston, here's your pop-up. You could just take 10 thousandths off the crown of the piston. Okay, and get your squish back to 20 thousandths. So if you had a lathe and you're so inclined, just one quick cut. Now I could do that. I really could, but you folks out there, most of you don't have a lathe, so this is the channel of learning, so let's work with what we got. We're not going to use the lathe on this at all, and this saw will cut, friends, I guarantee it. But yeah, you could cut this off here. Now you'd essentially have a 10 thousandths taller pop-up, you'd have more compression, etc., etc. So, and if you did that, it would open, we would open everything 1 degree sooner, so our exhaust would be at 103, our transfers would be at 119. We'd have the same numbers, friends, that we have now. We just achieved it. Instead of raising the cylinder, we would put the cylinder back down with no base gasket, and we would just cut the top of the pop-up. That 10 thousandths we added to the cylinder, if we subtract it from the piston, it's the same thing. Does that make sense? Cylinder height, if it's higher, the exhaust opens sooner, then the transfers open sooner, and the intake opens later. Okay, if it's lower, the exhaust opens later, the transfers open later, the intake opens sooner. That's how all this stuff works. Okay, friends, I hope you guys enjoyed this and were entertained and learned something from it. It was cool. I like when I find these little anomalies on video, like what happens if you don't want to run a base gasket but your timing's off or your squish is off. Well, in this case, put the base gasket in and we ended up with better numbers. So, and again, you can cut the crown of the piston if you need to make more squish. You can do that. You can cut the bottom of your piston to make intake timing. You got to be careful with that though. Piston design will dictate whether you can do that or not. We're going to get further and further down the rabbit hole as this channel progresses, but for right now, I'm not going to use my lathe because I assume, and I could be wrong, most of you guys don't have lathes. If you guys have lathes, then we could really party with this one, but we're not going to do that right now. I want to show you guys, you don't need fancy tools. All you need to do is know how to read a timing wheel and know how to grind, and that's it. And these things will make power. Anyhow, friends, as always, thanks for watching. Take her easy, and I'll see you guys in a couple days. Later. Thanks for being here.